Hello and welcome to HiveState Bakugan. Today's a video that's a little bit overdue, but we're finally getting around to it. Today we're doing a deck profile on a deck that I've been calling Gold Rush. Now this deck isn't fully complete. There's a couple things that I'd like to tweak and change with it, and I haven't put quite enough testing into it. But the point of this deck was to see if I could make Fury decent, because so far Fury seems like the kind of the weakest of all the little effects. And I think what I've got so far is doing okay. So let's go to the table and talk about where it's at. Okay, so to talk about the deck, the three Bakugan that I'm using in this is, well, a Pegatrix, Serpentine Ultra, and a Garganoid Ultra. The cores I'm using with it are pretty much all the same across the board. For the 4 green fists in total, they're each the plus 150 plus 2 damage. And then for the flaming fists, they are both plus 6 damage. Now the reason that I'm using this little setup to start the deck is pretty highly for the evolutions. To start, excluding Serpentine Ultra, the Pegatrix and the Garganoid Ultra both have relatively high B power. One's 700B and one is 600B, but that's just base. With the Pegatrix, roll on one of the green fists and it jumps up an additional 3, just core. And then the Garganoid kind of does a little bit more. If you land on a flaming fist, it jumps up 4. So an 1100 B power base if you roll on the right fist, and a 900 B power base just for rolling on the right fist. That's not too bad to start. And all of these just get strictly better with their evolutions, which I am playing 3 of each of the evolutions in this deck. So the Pegatrix jumps up to 1100 base plus 5 on green. The Garganoid jumps up to a 900 base plus 7 on red. And then the Hyper Serpentine Ultra, it is only 500B, but I can play it on turn 2. So it's super early, you can play it almost any time. 7 damage, which is a decent amount, but its Fury effect is what makes this card phenomenal. If you have Fury, so no cards in hand, it's a 1500 B power card by turn 2. Also, it gets an additional 5 damage if you don't have any cards in hand. So that one is just strictly a wonderful card. But let's move into the core of the deck. Let's shift these out of the way. If we are talking about the, well, heroes. Yeah, if we're talking about the heroes, I use 3 Barbara because her effect, at the end of the turn, you get to draw a card or an additional card if you don't have a hand. Her effect does not stack, however. So if you have 2 Barbaras on the field, one's pretty much moot. Only one of them matters. And then for the other hero, I use Marco. Fury, if you have no cards in hand, plus 5 damage to your attacks. Also, really good if you play it in the right way. He only costs 3, and, well, it's not too bad of an effect. I don't see the need to run more than 2 of him. The only reason I run 3 of Barbara is for consistency. I really want her out on the field. Otherwise, she's basically energy. Now, speaking of consistency, I do run 3 Sifting Ashes. This card is terrible later on in the game, but early on it fetches the cards that you need, which is mainly your evolutions and Barbara, and another card that we'll get to here in just a sec. But this really helps you set up what you want. I use, let's see, 3 Cyndius stands. This, where there's so many evolutions and there's quite a few flip cards in this deck, this card is marvelous. I often do not charge my flip cards due to Cyndius stand. I will keep them in hand. That way late game, I can just have things that I know that stops the opponent. It's nice. Another Cyndius card is Might of Cyndius. Easily one of my favorite cards in this game so far. For just 2 energy, you flip the victory condition of the battle. So where Serpentine Ultra isn't super strong, its damage may be able to beat out what your opponent's played. especially with how much I'm seeing Fangzor to start. It's an easy counter for Fangzors. I do 3 Drago's Fury, 2 energy plus 4 damage, so that's on par, but its Fury effect's what makes this shine. It gives you double strike if you don't have any cards in hand. That can quickly deal a lot of damage early on, especially considering the card that I just kind of covered up a couple cards ago, the one that puts cards from your hand back into your deck. That card, it'll just turn on your Fury effects. You play it for 2, you can put back all the cards if you want, and congratulations, Fury works. So I really like that in this deck. I run 3 of the Fierce Boosts. It is one of the very, very few B-Power boosters in this deck. It's very much a glass cannon. You want to play this deck fast, hard, and then you're done. If you wait until long game, there's a good chance this deck's going to run out of steam. But this does help it a little bit. Plus 200 for 2, not great. But with Fury, plus 600 for 2, a really good card to just be top decking. I run 2 Cinder Coil, because destroy all enemy heroes in at least the local meta is wonderful. You don't want your opponents to have heroes, and this is just solves that problem. It's a bit of a late game card, 5 energy, but it's in there for when it needs. I'm also only running 2 Inferno Wings. It's a really good card, but 3, I was just seeing it too much. It's a 3 cost for 300. That's not great, but the fact that it removes all of your opponent's Baku cores, it basically helps you out against Chaos, and it stops the extra boost of whatever your opponent had. But that's the core of the deck. All that's left are the flip cards. Now, these aren't exactly the way that I want them, but I'm running 3 Block Outsiders because it's just the generic pay 3, stop everything but Pyrus. I'm running 2 Block Pyrus because in a mono deck, I want to be able to block the same attribute that I am. If my opponent doesn't use Pyrus, then those can be energy cards. If my opponent is using Pyrus and only Pyrus, well, these can be lifesavers, especially if you put them back later with Cyndia's Stand. And then the last, I'm only running 2 Fierce Termination, not because I want to run 2, but because I currently only have 2. This will probably replace, I'm not quite sure to be honest. It'll replace something. A Sifting Ashes is what's in its place right now, but I don't feel like that'll be permanent. It's just a 4-drop stop card, but with Fury, it's free, so really good way to stop that last bit of damage. I do hope that you enjoyed this little deck profile. There will be a bit more of these coming in the future. Might be a bit due to something that's coming up very soon, but hope you stick around, hope you enjoy. Make sure to subscribe, ring the bell, do all the things that you need to do to stay notified. But whether you do or whether you don't, you'll see me when you see me.